Let's see. All right, we're live.
Yes, we
What's
are.
going on, Eric? Joining me right now is Phuket Top Team head coach Eric Uresk. What's going on? How you doing, sir?
Good, man. Just wrapping up my day. It's been a crazy week of food poisoning and pinched nerve in the neck, but still grinding through what's got to get done at the gym and making sure guys are getting ready for their fights, man. So just enjoying life as much as possible.
Oh, how did that happen? How did you get the pinched nerve in the neck?
Just training overuse, man. I got just some things that are a little too tight and gotta be adjusted, and just wrestling hard with some of the guys, and just common things. And I just felt working out of some front headlocks, and my neck started to bother me. So I'm just dealing with that. Should be okay in another week or so.
No, there's no magic hands down there. Thailand is known for the magic hands.
Oh man, honestly, most of the like Thai massage is really bad if you have something like a nerve impingement. So I go to a physio. I've had nerve impingements before, and tried to sort it out with Thai massage, and it just makes it worse. Most of them don't have much of a an actual education, stuff like that. You got to be careful who you like put your hands on you.
Well, it's a new year, it's 2019, and I haven't done my podcast in a long time. And I wanted to start with a new podcast, a new style, and I wanted to bring on coaches. So from this podcast forward, all my podcasts will have coaches, head coaches, wrestling coaches, jiu-jitsu coaches, just coaches in general. And you're the first one, Eric, and I wanted to pick your brain and get your thoughts on anything and everything that's going on in MMA, in combat sports, and whatever else that comes along as we conversate. So the first thing that came to my mind when I was coming back from where I was coming from today is you being a former fighter, and now
Sure.
you are a coach and you're completely out of competing in mixed martial arts. When you have one foot in the door and you have one foot in coaching, what is the biggest impact, negative and positive, for the team that is around you?
So a guy that's actively fighting and coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do both effectively. One's gonna suffer, um, and um, and I find myself sort of in that position for a while, the last few years of my career, and it's either you care more about fighting or you care more about coaching, and so the selfishness of what you care about more is going to win out. You know what I mean? If I care more about my fighting, then obviously my guys are going to suffer. Whoever's kind of rallying underneath me. If my eyes more on coaching, then my fighting's going to suffer because you know, mixed martial arts in particular requires extreme selfishness to be a good fighter and a successful fighter. It requires a tunnel vision that really few other things take. It's the mental and physical demands are emotional and everything else. It's really quite a bit. So you can't be that selfish and then care about other people's careers at the same time. It's just not. I don't see how that works. Maybe there's some people out there that are that are a different breed, but I've never seen it really work where you can be really successful in both. Um, of course, that's just my opinion, but yeah, I don't see how that can sustain itself.
You said that you have to be selfish as a fighter, but where does it get to the point where you become narcissistic? Like, do you have to be narcissistic as a fighter? Like, a lot of people don't want to reveal that. They don't want to admit that. But I think that you do have to be narcissistic. You do have to be an asshole in your mind to everybody else, thinking that you are the best in the world. You have to have that attitude, right? You can't not
Yeah,
if you want to be the best.
um, there's a couple different ways to look at it. I think you certainly can start leaning towards narcissism in a lot of ways. I think Jon Jones would be, a good example of that. As Brendan Schaub kind of said, there's a good chance he's sociopathic, and that works for him. He's able to put his emotions to the side when he's handling business and just go in there and perform. You know, I often talk about the three types of fighters. You know, there's the athlete that we're seeing more and more of now, guys that are just want to compete and excel and win. You have the fighter, the guy that likes the violence, the guy that, you know, embraces sort of the struggle, the guy that's hard to beat, the guy that doesn't have any quit in him. He might not be the most technical guy in the world, but he just likes to bring the fight. And then you have the martial artist, the guy that sort of uses the competition and the struggle as a way to better himself and sort of challenges his fears to get better. And you have people that can be a combination of two of the three or even all three in some cases. You know, you have guys like, I don't think George St. Pierre was a narcissist. Just in seeing his interviews, I think he was greatly focused. I think he was also deeply troubled and stressed towards the end of his first run where he took a little break. But I believe him to be a martial artist and an athlete, where, you know, he enjoyed the physical side, but he also, I think, you know, really kind of delved into filling up all the holes in his game and exploring his weaknesses and stuff like that. Yeah, if you can be, there's a few different molds, but yeah, oftentimes, man, you got to be that narcissism. That the most important thing for a fighter is that they believe in themselves, right? Oftentimes that belief can grow into something where they believe that they're actually better than other people because they can fight. And I think that's something that I struggled with for a long time. And I had to do some work on that. Like, when you can fight, people treat you differently. And because you know, one of the more masculine things, you know, that we have in our world and in our culture is violence, right? And for whatever reason, men seem to cherish violence in terms of masculinity. And so in sport, right, the most violent of sports is obviously fighting, and maybe mixed martial arts being the crown jewel of sport fighting. And so when you can fight and you can handle yourself, people want to be around you. People want to buy you drinks. People want you to be around them. And so you get used to being treated differently. You get used to not having to wait on lines. You get used to kind of just taking what you want, and other people sort of sitting back and letting you do so. So yeah, you can fully become an asshole from fighting. You don't have to. I know a lot of guys that are really good human beings out there, and they happen to fight. But I also know a lot of people that are extremely successful, and yeah, and definitely one might call them an asshole.
Let's go back to Jon Jones, because Jon Jones is like the biggest topic
Sure.
in mixed martial arts now. You know, the whole fiasco of the USADA, Jeff Novitzky, Jon Jones. But let's focus on Jon Jones, right? Jon Jones, if you see his evolution, like, you remember when he first started in the UFC, he started out with this fake persona, like he's this Christian good boy. You know, I want to, you know, I'm fighting for my family, da 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 da, right? He was trying to create this aurora around him that he's some good guy, you know what I mean? Like, but in retrospect, in reality, he was just like most other fighters that are wild and crazy. Now you see him, he's acting like this wild and crazy Jon Jones, you know, admitting that he still drinks, he's still smoking weed, you know, he's doing what he does, and he still goes out there and performs at the highest level. Now, when you dissect his personality, you know what I mean? Like, do you believe that who he is, you know, by watching his interviews now, or do you think that's still an act somewhat?
I still think there's a bit of a persona going on. So interestingly, way back, going back maybe 8 or 9 years now, a guy that trained with us at Alliance went over and started training at Jackson's, and you know, was training with John quite a bit, and we kicked us down some rumors about all the partying, you know, the coke, the strippers, all that stuff, and it was just rumors at the time, you know what I mean? Like, so I was like, oh, that's interesting, you know. And then the stuff started to kind of come out, and I was like, oh shit, I guess all that stuff was true. But I knew, like, the whole, like, talking about God and Jesus at certain points in interviews and stuff like that. Like, I knew that was bullshit. I'd rather he embrace being the heel, and just be who he is. But I still even think in his attempt to embrace being the heel, there's a little bit of some of it's just it's not genuine. It's disingenuous. You know what I mean? Who knows, man? With the kind of fame and knowing you're the baddest motherfucker on earth, like who knows what that does to a person's psyche? Jon Jones may very well be the baddest man on the planet, like heavyweight, any weight. I think drugs, no drugs. I think Jon Jones very well could beat anybody up on the planet in a physical altercation. Who knows what that does to a psyche? Who knows what his psyche's like? Who knows what he was raised like? I mean, it's you find out, power and money change people, and it kind of reveals their true character, and maybe just has like a not a great character, or maybe he is a good guy deep down. I have friends over at Jackson's that say John's a great guy. So when I watch his interviews, I get that something's a bit misleading, but who knows? At the end of the day, those are just my feelings that I get when I watch him talk. But I enjoy it. I think Jon Jones is the greatest fighter of all time. I think scandal or not, I think he's the greatest fighter of all time. I think he could take drugs, not take drugs. He could sniff coke before title fights and go out there and pull it together. So, people want fighters to be these role models. And me personally, I like to use martial arts as a vehicle to better myself. And I try to do that with the guys around me. But at the end of the day, man, these guys are fighting the cage for money. Like, what do you want? You know what I mean? All that shit about sportsmanship, and that's all bullshit. If you want to be a martial artist, cool. If you want to be a fighter, cool. Be who you are. Be who you are, and people either accept you or you don't. Now, getting in hit and runs and shit like that's unacceptable, to me. That's negligent behavior, and you're putting people's lives in danger. So there's no excuse for that. All the other shit, I could care less. I don't want Jon Jones to be a role model. He's not a role model. He's a great fighter. He's entertaining to watch. He's quite possibly the greatest that's ever done it. And I'll continue to watch Jon Jones fight, whether he's on all the steroids, none of the steroids, all the drugs, none of the drugs. Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah. As a coach, like I've talked to a lot of coaches on the side about Jon Jones and the type of person, the type of athlete he is. But then at the same time, he's allegedly using, steroids or PEDs or whatever, right? And then he's at the same time, he's bringing in not the best attention to your facility too, right? If he's one of your fighters. As a coach, it's all about the cash.
For those guys, and I don't know. I'm not in that position where I'm going to make $1 million off a guy's fight or $100,000 off the guy's fight. So I can't say. What I can say is, generally for me, I don't like working with guys that don't want to really dive in to the psychological part of the game, that don't want to dive into sorting out their weaknesses, both personal and otherwise. You know what I mean? Now, Jon Jones's personal problems haven't cost him necessarily in the cage, but they've cost him a lot, So, he's beaten himself with his own demons. I'm a big fan of like confronting demons, and I'm not through martial arts, because it's scary. It's scary, and it's nerve wracking to know that you're going to go fight another man for money, and your identity's on the line. And can you work past that? Can you put that? Can you compartmentalize that for that 15 or 25 minutes? In front of potentially millions of people watching? Can you compartmentalize that? Are you willing to do what it takes to work to a place where you can believe in yourself against all those fears and all the voices in your head saying otherwise? I'm interested in that. That's my greatest fascination as a coach. Not everybody wants to get so philosophical about it, and I get that. Sometimes I lose people with that stuff, and I'm okay with that. I'm not the coach for everybody. I'm in search of perfection when I work with guys, and the guys I get on with best are willing to join me on the same pursuit. And that looks different for everybody. Nobody's going to get perfect, but I just like setting my eyes on what that looks like. Would I work with Jon Jones? I don't know, man. I don't know that I would want to be in a situation where the fighter has more say than the coaches. my personality probably wouldn't work with that. And I don't think I'd hoe myself out for money. You know, I don't think I'd be able to hoe myself out and let somebody boss me around while I'm supposed to be coaching them, telling me what he wants to do today. Because I don't give a fuck what what they want to do today. You know what I mean? If you come to me, you come to me because you trust me. That's not to say you're not going to have some say in what goes on, right? Or there'll be a discussion, but ultimately trust the process, trust the system. We'll get you to the fight, and we'll give you your best chance at winning. That's how I work. I can't work where guys are telling me when they're going to work out and missing workouts and coming in hungover and shit like that. Me personally, I can't do that. I just, I don't think that would work well with me and my personality.
Have you had fighters in the past that you brought into the gym and, it could have been here, it could have been at Alliance, it could have been at any other gym where it just didn't work out, like they just had too many problems and you had to you tried to guide them, but it just didn't work. Have you had that situation?
I've had guys that I've brought in that were great, good people, religious guys that just didn't embrace the learning process, that just wanted to come in and bang it out every day and weren't interested in skill building, just fighting and training really hard every day. And it's like, okay, like you can do that elsewhere. Like, and no ill will at all. It's just, I'm not the coach for you. I don't work like that. I don't believe in that. I don't think that's a great way to get better. I think it's a very old approach to fighting. And I think it's been proven to be ineffective as the sport grows. I think you have a very short span, and you're putting a cap on how much you can get better when you train like that. You really stunt your growth. If you're going to practice to prove yourself rather than improve, you're going to stunt your growth big time. And I only know that because I made that mistake for years out of my career. Was every day having trouble getting fights. So my fights were in the gym. I was coming in to fuck people up and prove that I'm a badass. And I stunted my growth. I got better, but not as good as not as good as I started getting once I started putting that to the side, putting the ego to the side, and started really coming to practice to improve, to learn, embracing vulnerability. These are all principles that I'm really big on, like embracing where you're weak and vulnerable, and getting better at it. Go to that place that you're scared of going. Acknowledge that you duck certain guys during training because they beat you at certain things. That kind of stuff. Like that's really what I'm interested in. More than anything. So as far as guys with real personal problems and demons, yeah, I've had guys that have been fucked up and couldn't hack it, and they usually sort themselves out. Usually, the training environment that I try to create doesn't lend itself to that, and guys will just they'll feel ashamed of themselves, and they'll often just fly home from wherever they came from. I usually don't have to sort it out, and there's no ill will usually behind it. It's everybody's got to do what's best for them at the time, and you try things out, and it doesn't always work.
With Jon Jones, like he's getting away with so much shit, continuously back to back to back, and that could get to your ego. Like he's the baddest motherfucker on the planet. You know what I mean? Like everybody says it, people are they don't want to fight you, like everybody's on your nuts. And this can build up, and it kind of makes me feel like it can get to a situation to where he doesn't give a shit about anything, and eventually outside of the cage something's going to happen, like a War Machine type situation where he's going to be in prison for a long ass time, and none of that money's going to help him.
100%. That's why I say this all the time. Check your demons, or your demons are going to check you. Jon Jones may never get checked in the cage, right? He might be the one guy that's so fucking talented, he might never get checked in the cage. Most guys will get checked in the cage, right? Most of us will get checked in the cage because of it. Jon Jones might not, right? But he'll check himself, right? And really, it's just an out of control ego. You know what I mean? It's if you strip it down, if that's the case, Jon Jones might be a fucking amazing human being. I don't know. You know what I mean? I've never met the guy before. People that I know say he's cool. From observing, I can form my own opinions based on my experiences in life, and I just don't see how the path that he's it's unfortunate too because the UFC, they really, their bottom line is to make money. Especially this new company is horrible. I'm not a big fan, and not that the Fertitas and when they were partnered with Dana weren't out to make money, but there's a lot more corporate feel to this new thing where fuck the rankings. You know what I mean? We're gonna do whatever big fight we can sell to make back some of that fuck how $4 billion we invested or whatever it was they sold the company for. It seems like that's the priority, is to make back the investment rather than preserve the integrity of the sport. And you can feel it. The new company definitely has a new feel. From what I understand, they're definitely not treating the fighters as well. A lot less of the locker room bonuses, a lot less of the little perks that used to go with going to UFC. I mean, you get the Reebok gym bag, you know what I mean? But I fucking throw half that shit out or give it away, you know? So yeah, it's interesting. I don't think they really care about his well-being as a person. I don't know that he has a lot of people that are willing to put money aside and care about his well-being, and that's unfortunate. You know what I mean? I could be totally wrong too, but from the way it looks, there's nobody telling Jon, and Jon might just not want to hear it, and his ears might not be open. That's also the case. He might have people that really do care about him. His ears aren't open, so they're gonna, they stick by his side anyway. That's entirely possible as well. But I definitely don't think the UFC gives a fuck
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah, the new ownership, I believe it's actually good for mixed martial arts as a whole around the world.
It'll allow
To be
competition
honest
to
with
catch
you.
up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll allow competition to catch up because it's allowing the UFC to slip, and Bellator's signing some great fighters. I wish to God they would stop with the circus fights. But other than that, man, they got some tough fucking dudes over there. Mike Chandler, Darian Caldwell, like that's like McDonald. Rory McDonald very well might be the best welterweight in the world. You know what I mean? And he's over there. So yeah, they got some savages over there. They got some good fights. I wish they would just sell that product. You know what I mean? They seem to, not want to do that. They seem to want the quick route to quick ratings, and it's like reality TV type shit. I'm personally not interested in it. But then again, maybe I'm not the guy that they're trying to sell to. So I'm sure they got some business people that are smarter than me in there and doing things. But I'm interested in their real fighters. Not the
Well,
retirement league.
with Jon Jones, right? Like, before we move on to the next topic, Jon Jones, like, he got busted, with the picogram or whatever the fuck that they're talking about, like this little trace that's gonna stay with you forever and this bullshit. If you know anything about drugs, man, come on. Like, anybody know anything about
Well,
drugs in your system?
with the amount that an athlete sweats, I don't see how it stayed in his system that long. He's been working out the whole time, training in his boxing gym, training in his garage, boxing. I'm sure he's been training, doing stuff, sweating, sweating a ton, more than the average person, pretty physically active. I don't know, man. I don't know. I also think steroids should be allowed. You know what I mean? So I don't care. I know that during most of it, up until USADA, almost everybody was on something. I was very naive to it most of my career, and then I started finding out how many guys that I knew personally were on stuff, and obviously I would never put that out there. But yeah, man, it was shocking how many people were, and to think that everybody went clean because of USADA. I'm sure people are still trying to game the system any way possible. However, it's also it's a fact that supplements do get tainted. Do people take these tainted supplements on purpose, knowing that they could just claim that if something happens? That's entirely possible too. I wish they would just get rid of USADA. Hey man, take whatever the fuck you want to take, go in there, have a fight, and it's sanctioned violence. At the end of the day, and you're putting your body through. Maybe you don't have to legalize testosterone, but certain things just to help people aid in recovery because of the what a fight camp takes out of you physically is. I don't think people really understand that. I don't think sports science has caught up yet, or really gets what happens in a fight camp, how much it actually breaks you down. with the day-to-day 2-3 workouts a day, where it's one-on-one. You know what I mean? So the other guy doesn't want you to win. You know what I mean? And so you're kind of battling of wills all day long. It's fucking stressful, man. It's really, really stressful. I think certain things should be legal. I think they do they enhance performance? They enhance recovery and maybe thus performance. Some things do enhance performance, literally enhance the performance. And I think okay, maybe those things could be curbed. But I think that stuff should be loosened up a little bit. I think let's why are some things are illegal because they work too well. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm also I don't buy into all the stigmas about that stuff. I think there needs to be a more sane and sober conversation without the hysterics about performance enhancing drugs and just things people take for recovery and stuff. I have friends that have popped for cold medicine. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. It overshoots the mark sometimes. I don't even think that its intended purpose was to help or benefit the fighters. I think it was to clean up a sport so that they could sell the product without a tarnished image rather. I don't think that there was anything for the betterment of the sport or the fighters. I think they loved when guys were out there, taking whatever they're taking and putting on these great fights. I mean, look back to Pride when everybody was allowed to take whatever they wanted. Those fights were made. Why do we like Pride? Because everybody was on whatever the fuck they wanted to take, and they were putting on these Superman performances. Should there be limits? Maybe, but I think it needs to be talked about in a sane and sober manner. Like I said, without the hysterics.
What are your thoughts on Jeff Novitzky? He works for the UFC. A lot of people thought he worked for USADA, but that's not true. That's not even. He never worked for USADA. But one thing a lot of people don't know, I think, is that Jeff Novitzky was the one that busted BALCO. He's the one who investigated BALCO, busted them, cleaned them out. Barry Bonds, Marion Jones, all them.
Yeah.
Now, how do you go from being on one side of the fence to the other side of the fence? It's like a cop becoming
I was just going to say that.
Or a street thug becoming a cop.
So prior to my life in martial arts, I was a street guy. You know what I mean? Novitzky feels like a cop, like anybody I've ever met in my life. He's got that cop feel. He's got I didn't think he was. I didn't really want to be around him too much. I know there's like incentivized ratting programs and stuff like that. Like, I don't trust the guy. Some people, I've heard people say that he's a good guy, this and that. I didn't get like that to me. He came off like a guy with a sense of entitlement, a guy with a point to prove, a bit of like vengeance about the way he went about things, especially the way he went after Lance Armstrong. That whole thing is absolutely ridiculous to me. The whole sport was doping. And you singled out one guy who was doing exactly what everybody, he was leveling a playing field. And you singled out one guy. It's real weird to me. If everybody's doing it, I have a hard time with saying what's right and wrong. You know what I mean? Like, he was literally leveling a playing field. So yeah, he's got the feel of somebody that's out for vengeance. Maybe he lost a race to somebody he thought was doping, like early in his childhood or something like that. But yeah, he seems to be like working off a different motive. That's just a feel and an opinion from me. What the fuck do I know? But I'm not a big fan. I'm not a fan. Personally, I got a real cop feel off him, and it's not my favorite demographic. So,
yeah, what you're saying is what, because recently I've been listening to this podcast called Scandal, and this podcast like goes through the whole BALCO scandal of like what happened from the beginning to the start. Victor Conte and all them, Jeff Novitzky, and the informants that Jeff Novitzky got, that he used against BALCO, right, to infiltrate BALCO. They said the same exact thing. Like, he had some kind of like vengeance towards these guys that are using, or these athletes, right? And his target wasn't really BALCO. It was Barry Bonds. It was
Yeah.
Tim Montgomery, Marion Jones, all these big athlete, big names making big money.
Yeah, there's this weird American thing, and it doesn't exist. Like Russian athletes, like in a lot of organizations, openly dope. You know what I mean? They're not getting tested. It's not a big deal. It's sort of like laughable. And a lot of the Eastern European guys are like that. They openly dope, and it's not cheating in the organization. So whatever, take what you want. It's interesting how the American stigmas about that stuff. It's almost like some Cold War shit. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we don't do that. I don't know. It's like I fought clean my whole career, right? Just because it was against the rules, and if I accomplished anything, I wanted to accomplish it on my own during my MMA career. And some part of me wishes like that I didn't, because everybody was most people were at the top were taking stuff, and there was sort of a little bit of that naivety, and sort of there's a dogma that's sort of passed down, especially in wrestling and whatnot, in America in particular, really that this stuff is evil and it's bad and it's a shortcut, and I don't believe that to be true. I think the more educated I've gotten in dealing with different athletes, it's you still got to work hard. You're not going to just take something and be a champion. No way, shape, or form. That's not going to happen. It will certainly improve your results. That's not arguable. But I don't think it's bad or evil, and it's a very it's a risky and in a lot of places. Now, if you're in an organization that, like the UFC, I would tell you, do not take anything. You're a fucking idiot. You know what I mean? You're going to fuck up your career. If you're in an organization where it's allowed or not tested for, I tell you to make your own opinion. You know what I mean? I'll tell a guy to do what he thinks is best for him. I don't want to, like, talking from this like moral hilltop the way some people do. It's disgusting. It's fake outrage. You know what I mean? It's people. A lot of people just want to be upset about something. You know, just looking for the next opportunity to be offended or outraged, and because it feels good to be right and superior. You know, it's an ego boost. It's nothing but people's ego, unchecked ego. You know, looking for somebody to be mad at, looking for I'm right, you're wrong, you're bad, and feeling a superiority, and I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, man. A lot of people, they just want to attack people for no reason. I think that they have nothing else
Yeah,
better to do.
I think people aren't sad. A lot of people, a lot of people are not satisfied with their lives. Okay, if you're not satisfied with your life, the easiest thing to do is point fingers. And I did it for a long time in my life. I would point fingers at anything. So I'm quick to call it out when I see it, you know, and when I feel that that's misplaced, like, unhappiness with your own life a lot of times. You know, sometimes it's just out and out cheating, and I guess, I guess everybody's entitled to their own opinion. But the fake outrage kills me. You know, Jon Jones is a piece of shit, and is he? Is he? You know, is he a piece of shit? Should he be condemned or burned at the stake because he may or may not have done steroids? We still don't know. You know what I mean? We don't know for a fact. No one knows for a fact. You could have strong opinions. You could have a strong feeling one way or the other, right? But I mean, that's what we're having. All these conversations are. We've given very little facts in this conversation. Doesn't mean it's less interesting. We've talked about our opinions, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody might think we're a fucking asshole or a piece of shit, and we should be burned at the stake for thinking steroids aren't that bad or whatever. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but until we know for a fact. It's and even if I know for a fact I don't want Jon Jones burned at the stake, I don't even want anything bad happen to him. Should he face sanctions? Yeah, those are the rules, right? Yeah, I'm not down with condemning people for falling into personal demons, because listen, I've made mistakes. I've made horrible mistakes in my life. I don't want to be condemned and burned at the stake for them. I'm sure you've done things that you're unhappy with in your life, or wish you could take back. I'm pretty sure you don't want to be condemned or burned alive for them, right? And so I got to extend that to other people when I can.
Oh, that's definitely true, man. Like, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has secrets. Everybody has demons. Yeah. Nobody just lives their life without them. Those fucking preacher guys on TV driving fucking Lamborghinis and living in mansions and shit. You don't think they fucking got demons like a motherfucker? They
No, of
got
course.
demons.
And that's why, like, publicly on my social media, I put a lot of my past out there and kind of make light of it. For that reason, you know what I mean? Like, I've done some horrible, horrible things in my time. I paid for them. And I've had to, and I've paid, more than just like whatever legal consequences. Like, you pay for that stuff emotionally, and you're not happy when you're doing those things. Who knows if Jon Jones is actually happy or content, or if he's living in a personal hell, chasing pleasure as a means to cover up for feelings of inadequacy. Who knows, right? You pay for it. You pay for it on a scale people don't know. I believe you pay for it karmically. Whether you subscribe to that or not, I don't know. But yeah, I don't need to add to anybody's punishment. If people are living foul, they're gonna pay for it, one way or another, because it's real hard to be an asshole and be happy at the same time. And ultimately, that's what we're looking for. Sometimes, we look for happiness in a way that's misguided. We start chasing pleasure, drugs, women, status, power, all that stuff, and then we realize, oh, that's not where it's at. It's not in those things. Ultimately, it's in like doing things for other people, and like, more selfless acts is generally where I find more happiness. But man, that's a hard place to look. I know that, but I still look for it in ways that are maybe less healthy or less sustainable all the time. We have a short memory with that stuff for whatever reason. But yeah, man, people are just learning, and I really believe, and this might be a bit naive, but I really believe even if they're doing a fucking terrible job, everybody's doing the best they can at that moment, even if it's a bad job. I know when I've done horrible things at that time, that's the best I could do at that time. Wasn't good, right? But at that time, that's the best I could have done. If I could have done better, I would have. And I think that's true for everybody. I think if people could do better, they would. I think they're just working with whatever they got at the time. And so I try to cut people a little slack. I'm not going to let people run over me, and I'm going to hold them accountable, but I'm also not going to try to burn them and fucking condemn their existence either.
Definitely, man. Another thing that people in MMA are outraged about is throwing in the towel. Like, you remember Dan Hooker when he fought Edson
That just happened
Barbosa?
recently, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I think, Dan, from all accounts, from what I hear, he's trained quite a bit over at Tiger. I understand he's a tough guy. He was taking a beating. I think his corner did the right thing. Some guys are like, oh, if you throw in the corner, throw in the towel, I'll kill you. I might be willing to lose a friendship and let my friend keep his not have brain trauma or not further his brain trauma. I'd be willing to lose a friendship over that, to protect my friend if needed. So yeah, man. Look, if generally the guys in your corner should know you pretty well, and they might know when you're out of a fight. If they stop believing in you, or think that you're in danger, that's what they're there for. And everybody has that sort of that attitude. Do you want them to throw in the towel prematurely? No, but man, that fight was going nowhere good. You know what I mean? And Dan's young. He's got a long career ahead of him. He's been beating some crazy guys. He's been quite a surprise, actually, because at 45 he didn't look that good. One of my guys, Jason Knight, beat him pretty easily. And then took him down pretty easy and kind of had his way with him, and then moved up to 55, and he's looked good. But both, there's just levels to this stuff, and Hooker's young and he'll be back, man. But fucking give him the chance to be back. Don't let him go brain dead in there. Props to his corner. That's a hard decision, and yeah, people will cut you flack for that, and fuck those people. You know what I mean? Like, this is people's lives, and man, what kind of quality of life you're gonna have, like drooling on yourself and you can't form sentences. Like, watching people get punch drunk it's sad. It's sad. I've got a few friends that are a little punchy. Some of them more than others, and it's sad. It's sad to look at somebody that they've lost the vitality that they used to have, or the ability to think coherently or remember anything. That's not cool, and that's a real price that comes with this job. If you take enough damage, you're in enough battles. Fuck the gym battles alone, man. will last you. I stutter from time to time, and I'm 100% it's from just gym wars. I didn't take that much damage in my career, but the gym wars definitely. I have a stutter sometimes. It comes out every now and then.
So when you're in the corner, your
Mhm.
guy is getting beat up, but he's a tough guy, and
Yeah.
he's told you many millions of times, like, like, don't ever throw in the towel. At what point do contemplate throwing in the towel?
When
Is
I
it
see
like
him
early in the
taking,
fight, later in the fight? What do you have to see for you
I
to
mean,
stop the
I gotta
fight?
see if he's taking damage and unable to defend himself, and he's not on his legs, and he's kind of none of his technique's not clean anymore, and he's just not going down. I'm throwing in the towel. You know what I mean? Like if I think he's just gonna get fucking like seriously hurt, I'm throwing in the towel. I haven't been in that position. Um, I had my best friend, and he's like a brother to me, Danny Martinez. He fought Ali Bagatinov. I think it was a 5 rounder, in Russia, and I was in his corner, and he lost most of that fight, and but he was never out of the fight. He got handily beat, but Ali did a great job. And Danny fought his heart out in that fight, and at no point did I think Danny's welfare was in jeopardy. Now, mind you, his kids are like my nieces, like he's family to me. I stay at his house often, so there's another motive to protect him as well. On top of that, and at no point in that fight, although he was getting beat, did I think he was in danger of something that he wasn't going to come back from. If I had even an inkling of that, uh, I would let him know I'm thinking about stopping it. You got to show me something, or I'm going to stop it. And I would let him know that in the corner. You got to show me something, or I'm going to call this. No matter how bad you want to get in there. And listen, the fighter's job is to fight, and the fighter should have that fighting spirit where they don't want to go in there. I'd be more questionable of the fighter that wants to stop than the corner that wants to stop it. You know. Um,
Well, recently you saw a couple stoppages in the corner. One, for example, was the Anthony Pettis versus Tony Ferguson fight. I think he
Good
stopped in
stoppage.
between rounds. Great stoppage. I thought that was beautiful to see that, a corner can go in there between rounds and realize, hey, this guy, even, he has a broken hand,
Yeah.
he's not going to be able to throw that hand. Like, basically, you're fighting with one arm.
Yeah.
And you, how are you going to go in there and fight with one arm? Like, I love that Duke Rufus stepped in there and stopped
I
that
think
fight.
that's
There
I
was
think that's
another fight
amazing.
just recently. I forgot which fight that
There was
was.
another fight really recently, and I was trying to think about it. I think it was on 232, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember what fight it was, but yeah. Listen, it's so hard, man. It's hard to watch your friends go out there and get fucked up in front of you. It is. It's hard, man. I have such a hard time. I had a guy recently go out and just have a really bad fight, and I had tears in my eyes after. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't show them that, but it's hard to see that and to see somebody get taken out like that. Uh, so yeah, I mean, as long as it's not premature, and even if it is, man, I mean, who knows? They were doing it for your own benefit. Nothing sucks worse than losing a fight to your ego. But that's not important. Living your life as a vegetable, well, that probably sucks worse than losing a fight. That's temporary. You'll get over that. You'll get over the fight getting lost. You're not going to get over losing your character, the spirit and the vitality, the way people knew you. If you ever met somebody with brain damage, and they're not the same person that they used to be, whether it was from fighting or not, it's weird, man. I had a good childhood friend that got in a motorcycle accident, and same age as me, and he's now like a child, like the first time I saw him like that, it took me back. I got emotional from that. It's like, wow, like this guy I used to roll with in the street, and now he's like a child. He's like a playful. He's like a disabled child. It's weird. Do you want that to happen to your friends? I don't want that to happen to my friend. I don't want my friends, my fighters' kids to grow up with a dad that can't play with them or communicate with them and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, I think something that people forget, and it's really hard because we're all so immersed in this, either professionally or just passionately. Fighting is not that important, right? If mixed martial arts ceased to exist, the world would be fine. You know what I mean? It's something that we love. It's an outlet. It gives us all something to do. I couldn't imagine my life without it, right? But at the end of the day, it's not that important. It really isn't. It's not, in the grand scheme of life, fighting means nothing. You know, especially with the way the world's heading, it's really not that important. That's not to say it's not a good thing. It doesn't, martial arts don't give people, character building and self-esteem and stuff like that. Like there's certainly that element to it, but prize fighting is not that important.
Now, another big topic recently was the fixed fight in Japan.
Yeah.
And I know you got some, thoughts on this. Floyd Mayweather goes in there and boxes. And to me, the weird part about it is, and I totally believe it's not fixed. I don't believe it was anywhere near being fixed. I just think that it was a fight. It was an exhibition. Floyd is way bigger than that guy, and he's doing what he does. What did you expect to happen? And in that fight, his corner threw in the towel.
Yeah, well, it's also in Japan, which, I mean, let's face it, Japan's known for fixing fights. They're known for liking the freak show fights, the circus fights, and the spectacle. I'm sure Pride fixed some fights, and I don't think it's really debatable, right? I think it's just I know for a fact that fights get fixed in China all the time. So it happens in Asia, I think, a little bit more elsewhere. The governments are not really the governing bodies in a lot of these things. So there's a little more leeway with what happens with that stuff. It's a circus, man. I'm not interested in circus stuff. I'm not. I had no interest in that fight whatsoever. Watched a little bit of the highlight clips and cool. You know what I mean? If it was a kickboxing match, I would have been interested. You know what I mean? Like watching Floyd box guys that don't box. Like, what's next? He's gonna box like a street fighter, a guy off the street that claims he's the master of of some style that he invented. I have zero interest in Floyd keeping up with his gambling debts. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not interested in that at all, man. The guy's
What's that New York street fighting style that they used to have? Oh man, I forgot the name of it. It's like a hand fighting technique in New York. They created in the streets of New York.
We used to just I don't know. We used to just scrap. Like, we didn't have no names, but, we didn't have
no, because I watched one of these DVDs a long time ago. It was like a hip hop DVD, and in that DVD they were like showing these guys in New York that they had this like certain style of fighting in the street where it's some kind of like these hand I don't know what it was called, but if I could find it, I'll send you a link later. If I find something.
Yeah, like we used to slap box, but that's just like playing around. You know what I mean? Like guys just fucking around with their hands and slap boxing. So I don't know if there's some sacred art, but New York was a weird place when MMA was not MMA yet, when it was no holds barred and like you'd get some weird dudes coming into gyms, like inventors of styles and stuff like that. Like, it's come a long way since then. But, we used to get some whack jobs coming into the gym wanting to fight. You know what I mean? We'd have guys, when I was at Extreme Couture, guys come in, I want to spar with the pro team. Do you have pro fight? No, but I got street fights. And Tompkins sometimes would let him come in and we'd just green light the dude. He just we'd drop him to the body and send him home, and that was that. They rarely show up more than once. But those days were wild, man. The traditional martial artists, or you'd have fake traditional martial artists, guys that weren't even traditional martial artists, but fake traditional martial artists rocking up, wanting to spar with the pro team, and go ahead, man, sign a waiver, and have at it. But you don't really see that stuff too much anymore.
Yeah, maybe about 5 years ago, a lot of people were like, there's these kids coming up. They're going to be like full mixed martial artists. They're going to train everything together at one time, and their skills are going to be so high. And I'm still yet to see these types of fighters, because right now, if you look at the rosters, if you look at the champions, none of the guys are these guys that grew up training everything. These guys are all wrestlers
Yeah,
still.
and I think that's the way it's always going to be. I think I think building a solid foundation in wrestling is invaluable. It's invaluable. Not just for the skills that wrestling presents, but the mindset, the work ethic. It's just really valuable for all those things. A lot of these guys are good wrestlers. And if you ask anybody, that fights that didn't wrestle, they're gonna be like, man, I wish I wrestled. Because they realize how valuable it is. Yeah, I think I honestly I don't think just learning mixed martial arts is great. I think you get very mediocre at everything. Um, Apart from a guy like Rory McDonald, who's quite good at everything, he's not a great wrestler, but he's used takedowns effectively against a lot of guys. He's a guy that can kind of adjust to who he's fighting really, really well. I'm quite impressed by him. Um, uh, but yeah, I don't know I think specializing has its advantages. I think it definitely has its advantages. I mean, look at the other kid from New Zealand that's Adesanya,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is a top tier striker. I think he fought for the Glory title. He's gonna fucking walk right over Anderson. They're not even on the same level. If Anderson was in his prime, Adesanya would walk right through him. This guy's an elite striker that can make it work in MMA. He knows how to strike in MMA, and a lot of people don't do that. Like, it's not working for Gokhan Saki or a lot of these guys that try to come in. They don't understand the distance, and that's a problem. The distance for MMA is different, so you get a lot of like boxers or pure strikers with their nose up in the air about MMA striking, and some of it, yeah, is a bit atrocious if you compare it. But what they're forgetting is the distance is completely different. You have to account for the distance being different, to the amount of techniques you can throw in a combination, the amount of time you can spend in the pocket, because you have clinches and takedowns that make all that stuff quite different. Yeah, it's interesting. I think guys like Adesanya, he's a specialist. He's about as much of a specialist as you can get in striking, and he very well might be the best middleweight in the world right now.
And he's not even the champ.
No, he's not even the champ. He's not even the champ, but he could very well be the best in the world right now. I think Romero beat Whitaker in that last one. I think that was a bullshit robbery. You can't score those rounds the same. If I edge you out and point you up a round and then you nearly kill me in the next round, those cannot be the same score. It can't be. So yeah, Romero. Romero didn't make weight in that fight, though. To be fair, so he wouldn't be the champion anyway. But yeah, it's interesting to see what's going to happen. I'd like to see Adesanya and Romero fight. I think the UFC.
Yeah.
I think the UFC is going to hold on to him a little bit and guide him a little bit. They see a star in the making, so they're going to do what they always do when they have a striking star in the making. They're going to hide him from elite wrestlers. Brunson's a good wrestler. He's not an elite wrestler. So I think they'll hide him from the elite wrestlers, much like they did with Conor, for a long time. Yeah, they'll try to make a star and they'll try to make money because at the end of the day, it's a business and that's what they're doing. But I don't know if Adesanya needs to be protected. I don't know if he needs to be protected, but it'll be interesting. I'm not really interested in the Anderson Silva fight at all. I think it's a joke of a fight.
Yeah.
And it's no disrespect. Anderson's one of my favorite of all time. He was amazing and he did great things, and he's top 5 dead or alive. Of all time, but he is far past his prime against somebody who's way better at than he's ever been. So the sport evolved, and yeah, that's kind of going to be a little bit sad to watch. I'll still probably watch it, but I'm not super interested in it.
Yeah, the UFC kind of played him by telling him that if he wins, he would get a title shot, which just shows you that the UFC doesn't, like you mentioned earlier in the beginning of the podcast, that these rankings, they have them, but they don't
Uh,
fucking matter for anybody.
it's
So whenever
bad.
you say, "Oh, I'm ranked," that don't mean shit to anybody anymore because hey, they'll throw in Anderson Silva if he wins one fight. And
Yeah.
if the MMA gods have their way, they could just fuck everybody over and have Anderson win some fucking whack ass decision where nobody throws anything, but Anderson lands like 3 punches or some
Yeah, I
weird
mean,
shit could happen.
they've organized whack decisions before, like Bisping's fight against Anderson.
Yeah, yeah.
Pretty whack decision if you ask me. Um, uh, yeah, man, it's weird. What we were talking about earlier with I don't know that it'll be good for MMA as a whole. And I get the competition thing, and I think that might be a good way. There's no product out there that's as good though. You know what I mean? None are even close. None are even close to the talent and the overall just the product and production and whatnot. UFC, Bellator, just quality fighters and they're making moves, but the announcement's not as good. The production's not as good. It's not as good of a product, right? And so, can these other products sustain the crowd that the UFC has? So, if the UFC starts to lose popularity and the casuals go by the wayside, are the casuals going to follow over to these other promotions? I don't think so. I don't think so. I think that's one reason. One reason. One is having a hard time getting traction going in a lot of places. There's not enough casual fans. It's diehards pretty much. Diehards or, they build a star in a local market and you get the locals that just are looking for somebody to look up to. You know what I mean? But there's not enough casuals, right? And so can another product aside from the UFC sustain the casuals? Is another product aside from the UFC going to get on ESPN or produce stars that are in the newspaper and tabloids? You know what I mean? Is that possible? I don't see it right now. I don't see it for another. It will be years for that to be possible. Can it survive that, or is it going to hit another dark spot where sort of it was just on pay-per-view every now and then? You know what I mean? And there was no real coverage of it. And they were happening, but it was, I still knew about it because I was reading magazines and following it, but nobody else knew about it. It vanished for a little while, if you remember that, a while back, like just before the Ultimate Fighter and sort of the Zuffa era. MMA.
That's when the Pride was kicking in, though, right? Pride just had started kicking up.
Pride was just diehards, right? Not a lot of casuals watching Pride.
Yeah, definitely not casuals.
Yeah, and you're not going to get rich. You're not going to sustain a product off that. You're not going to have a global product with something like that. Do we need a global product to survive? I don't know. I'll be involved with martial arts, whether there's a UFC or whatever organization's going on. I'm sure I'll be involved in something, but I'll be training in martial arts regardless and working with people that want to. But yeah, sometimes there's growth periods and things overgrow and they kind of settle into, their right size. And maybe that's what's going to happen with MMA at some point. It hit that amazing peak era with the Fertitas and it had a pretty strong run. I feel like it's lost some of its flair. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, I feel that the last few years the UFC kind of let other promotions catch up a little bit, get their bearings wherever they are, whatever niche that they want to, fit into. But now with this ESPN deal, I feel that the UFC is gonna just boom. I feel ESPN is just gonna help them so much.
Yeah, it very well could. It very well could. The ESPN thing's pretty big, because it's putting it in sports fans' face. People that like sports, they like physical stuff. Yeah, that very well could send it over the top. If it doesn't, I think we're going to see a bit of a depression, if you will, somewhere in the future. But it could go either way. I hope I'm wrong. You know what I mean? I hope I'm wrong, obviously. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
All right, now before I let you go, I wanted to ask you, what do you have shaken? Like What fighters do you have prepping for fights? You know, when can we see you cage side? Tell us everything.
So you'll see me cage side for sure. Bellator Newcastle, February 9th, Newcastle, UK. Terry Brazier is a guy I've had for his last couple of fights. He was a two-weight champ in BAMA, which is like one of the bigger promotions in the UK and Europe. And so he just got signed to a good deal over there. And yeah, feel great about that fight. Taking on a guy named Bungard. And yeah, I think he's gonna do well. He's exciting guy. He goes in there and goes to wars. He never makes it easy for me. He makes me fucking pull my hair out every fight. But he's a guy that just finds a way to win. He's a combat veteran. He's a little crazy, and he likes to go in there and get bloody. And so yeah, I'm looking forward to that fight quite a bit. I've got some guys coming up in One Warrior series at the end of February. I have some of my up and comers fighting down in Australia, continuing their undefeated streak. I got a prospect named Ben Royal that will, God willing, that kid will be doing big things. He's smashed some of the best in Australia. He's from the UK. He's from Manchester, but he lives here with me at Phuket. And yeah, sky's the limit for that kid. He's super talented and has a great mindset. Is not an asshole, and you know, he's very dedicated, and he's also one of the nicest people that I know. So I'm excited to see what the future's got for him. And then I've always got guys coming in and out, and, you know, hitting me up to come in for camps. Like James Vick was just out here for a couple weeks and just working some stuff and, you know, building some skills. And now he's back in Lloyd Irvin's camp, getting ready for his next fight. And he's hungry to get back in there and, you know, get back in the win column. Didn't have a good outing last time, and, you know, that happens, man. You get tagged and get caught. I think he beats Gaethje most of the time. I think that fight just didn't go his way. As far as other things super pressing, not too much. I just had Vaughn Lee, who used to fight in the UFC, just joined Top Team as my assistant coach, so I'm excited about that. He's got a really cool, eclectic striking style, very like kung fu based, but he's able to coach striking and boxing quite well. So that's been cool to have him here working with the guys, and he's a lot more chilled out than I am. I'm a bit intense and can be a little bit in your face, and Vaughn is about the polar opposite, so we sort of balance each other out a little bit. And it's nice for me to just have some help because I've been pretty much coaching everything at the gym by myself, and that can get a little wearing on top of I still train full time, so training full time, coaching full time. You know, I just train because I have to, and I just can't not train, and I'm a perfectionist, you know, so pretty much just grappling and wrestling and BJJ these days. But yeah, so I got all that going on, and newly engaged, and so doing
Oh,
that.
congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, so that's a wild ride, and yeah, man, just enjoying life, and the endless pursuit of improvement, man. Just wherever I'm at, just trying to get better at whatever I'm doing. So that's it.
Yeah, man, Eric, it's always good speaking with you, man. You have a good energy around you. Whenever I speak to you, I always feel that you're giving me the 100%, man. You're giving me 100. So it's always great, you know, chopping it up, and we need to get into the hip hop and stuff like that. But you know, there's always next time.
Yeah, we'll do it
Yeah,
again for sure, man. This is fun. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah. In a couple months, we'll get back on here after, you know, you make your trip out to
Yeah, we'll do it
England, and
after
we'll
England. We'll
talk.
hop back on. Sounds good.
All right, man. Thank you, Eric, for your time, and good luck to on your, you know, on your journey, man.
All right, thanks, brother. Appreciate it. You too.